and also what pension scheme they will offer the staff.
Fines of up to £1,000 could be issued to homeless people begging in Poole. New public space protection orders come into force today that also outlaw unattended bedding and sleeping bags and failure to move on from the town centre when directed by police. The move's been slammed by the Bishop of Sherborne, the human rights group Liberty, and even the rap artist Professor Green. Katie Taylor from Poole Labour Party says homeless people will simply be unable to pay.
It cannot be enforced. People who are living homeless here in Poole, they're not going to have £1,000 to pay this fine. The council's just looking as if they are doing something, but they're getting it so very wrong. And in doing so, they are demonising some of the most vulnerable people.
Now, you may have heard this story on our drive show yesterday afternoon, and because I did, and I was listening, and I had our reporter Tristan, who's about to join us, mentioning that we were going to do this right now on the show this morning. A ban on begging and rough sleeping coming into force in Poole today. Earlier this week we reported how Bournemouth Borough Council have attached steel bars to public benches to prevent people lying down on them. Now Poole Borough Council is bringing in fines of up to £1,000 for anyone begging, drinking and sleeping on the streets. The public space protection orders, PSPOs, have been slammed by the church leaders, homelessness charities and even human rights group Liberty. In a moment I'll talk to the Reverend Lucy Holt, the Rural Dean of North Poole and a trustee of the homeless charity Roots to Roots. But first, yes, Tristan Pascoe, our Dorset political reporter, joining me with more on this. So, Tris, you told us about the council's public consultation on this back in September. Just explain what these new PSPOs are all about.
Yeah, it's worth running through the various offences, if you like, for which non-compliance with could incur a fine of up to £1,000. Jules. Approaching people with a sign or container to beg for money, food or alcohol. Sitting or loitering in a public place with a begging bowl. Leaving unattended bedding and sleeping bags in a public place. Bedding down or sleeping in shop doorways and car parks between 8 a.m. and midnight. Equally bedding down or sleeping in communal flats, stairwells, bin stalls or car parks, the use of alcohol and drugs in a public area, and indeed moving on or refusing to move on when directed to by police from licensed or retail premises in public spaces, in the town centre, of course, this refers to. Now, as you mentioned, very strong reaction. Local church leaders say it's targeting the most vulnerable in society, homeless people, mostly affected by this, won't be able to pay fines of up to £1,000. Local Labour Party activists we've been hearing in the news this morning say it's disgusting. They're demanding the council release the responses from the public consultation, which so far have not been made public. And the human rights organisation Liberty says these measures are wrong, entirely inappropriate, and they've offered to assist any group or individual that wants to challenge them. Their spokesperson is the human rights lawyer Lara Ten-Caton.
These public space protection orders are in clear breach of the government's new guidelines that say homeless people should not be targeted by public spaces protection orders. They just move the problem from one neighbourhood to the next. It's not a way of dealing with it. These orders are ripe for challenge. The order by Poole is particularly awful. If anyone would like to challenge them, please contact us. We will assist you to do so.
So, before I talk to Lucy Holt, Tris, just tell me what the council have had to say.
Well, they sent a statement saying, Julian, they're responding to residents and businesses who tell us antisocial behaviour is having a detrimental effect on their daily life and livelihood. I did ask a separate question. Would they also let us know if they will release the responses and make public what was fed back to them during the public consultation? And also, how many fines do they expect to have issued and indeed collected and paid? I didn't get a separate statement to that to this point this morning. I just mentioned quickly as to whether these fines work, Julian. A scheme was introduced. You'll remember on your programme we did this last year, and between Southampton and between April and December in Southampton last year, 12 fines were issued. Not a single one was paid.
Yeah, so that is a point to mention. A similar scheme was introduced in Southampton in April last year. So listening to that, the Reverend Lucy Holt, Rural Dean of Poole. Morning, Lucy.
Good morning.
Thanks for being there. So your reaction to this, I just, on the other side of this, because we were talking about the benches story a couple of days back, and some people feel that actually something does need to be done, and sometimes these aren't necessarily homeless people, these are professional beggars.
Well, I think it's very difficult to actually ascertain what's going on. There obviously are some issues with professional beggars, but there are also a huge amount of very vulnerable people out there who actually are getting caught up in this. I think it's really sad that actually Poole have issued this today. The public consultation the report hasn't been published. We have been told verbally that 70% of people said they didn't want the rough sleeping element put in the PSPO, and yet Poole have gone ahead and actually put with these draconian measures saying that people can't bed down till midnight. Actually, who wants to wander around the streets with your sleeping bag in the rain or in the cold from, till midnight before you're allowed to bed down? I mean, that's just inhumane.
I know you regularly have homeless people sleeping in your church porch. I just thought I'd tell you this from Monday's show. Yeah. I'm not going to say where this was, but a texter said that a church near them had actually put bars across their porch to stop homeless people sleeping in their porch. What do you say to that?
Oh, I think that wouldn't happen in one of my churches.
Right. I just thought I'd ask. Are you going to actually lobby the council? I mean, what are you going to do next, Lucy?
Well, we're in regular consultation with the council. We had a meeting with them about 3 or 4 weeks ago because we want to work together with the council to address the issue of homelessness. As a charity, Roots to Roots are trying to up their game in terms of what we can offer the homeless. But what we would really need is some sort of shelter for overnight stays, whether that be the model that they use in Bournemouth, where the church is open for something called Sleep Safe, or whether that be slightly different. We don't know. But actually, this is something that we really need to do. And the response from the council when we talked about Skinner Street URC, where Roots to Roots is based, becoming a homeless hub, was, well, that's a really good idea, but we're not going to give you any money for it.
Right.
So
Okay. And Lucy, final thought for those who do feel threatened, that's come out of the consultation, but by some people who are asking for money on the streets. What do you say to them who perhaps feel something does need to be done, but maybe they don't know what it is?
I would say that actually, if you just take time to sit and talk to these guys, sometimes the threat just goes away. I honestly say that I've never felt threatened by anybody on the streets of Poole, and I regularly just go up and talk to them. And we need to do that because actually, just even asking for money, what does that say about our society? What does that say about that person that they've had to sink that low to do that? And I think, we just need to be prepared to talk to people and just to get alongside people and offer support, and also get involved with Roots to Roots, which is our local charity. Offer to help, offer to come along to one of the drop-ins. You'll see the good work, and actually the fear soon goes away.
Lucy, thank you for your time this morning. Tristan Pascal obviously there as well, and if you've got a view on that, which I know you do from Monday's show, you can get involved and still pass on your comments, because they're always useful, because when we come back to it I can raise the issue. julianclegg@bbc.co.uk is my email address on that story. 12 minutes to